Okay, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I've got inside a Nios tank. I think it's a 3-footer, like 65 or 75 gallons. The team has been putting together for a while now. I think it's been set up close to a year. I want to ask JW some questions because it's really different. It's specifically softies. We don't talk enough about softies and they don't get enough love on our channel. So I feel like this is a good opportunity to go take a look and ask a bunch of questions. Maybe it kind of fits your scenario. Let's go see. All right, so we're here. I thought we'd do something cool and different today. We get a lot of talk about this tank in Instagram comments and some of the comments in our YouTube video when we did the entire store tour.
Okay.
I thought we'd talk about it because it's way different.
It's funny. It's way different than I've ever done it.
So can we talk about first, like what makes it different to you?
The lack of flow, lack of light. It's Vic asked for something unique and different than what we have. And so we started thinking about, well, what's the main difference? All the tanks got raging flow.
Yep.
They got raging lights. They're heavy SPS, most of them. So I said, let's try something low flow. This tank's a really nice built tank.
I know, I like these doors. They're like 1.25 inches thick and they got the nice soft
Yep.
close hinge.
Yep. Well-built tank. But yeah, so we started thinking, let's try low light, low flow. Let's see what happens. Give something different from the normal that we got around here.
Okay. So I'm probably going to ask you at some point if we can pull up the lighting profile because I'm sure everybody's going to ask.
Okay.
And then what's the return pump on this tank?
The S.
That's 2.
Yeah.
So it's a tiny little thing.
Yeah, and I think it's running at three dots, which is not much.
You know what's actually really funny is the other day, somebody did a water change in this tank. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Somebody did a water change in this tank and you remember I was asking you like, what's up with it? Why is it not refilling? I thought maybe something was wrong with the return.
No, it does. This tank does take like when it shuts down, I mean, the water drops like here. So it takes a minute to kick back up, but the sump, everything handles it. It's not the end of the world.
So that's wicked. So that's literally the only flow in this entire tank.
That's it. Just the return pump on three dots. So I don't know, 30% maybe.
So these are red spot cardinals. They
Yep.
kind of look like little freshwater fish.
Yep. And they're breeding. Well, he's got a mouthful right there.
That's awesome. And then these wicked, what do they call them? Storm.
I think there's a storm. I'm not the best climbers guy, but
Yeah, whatever.
they're cool.
Black
We got-
storms.
Yeah.
They're cool. You got Hell Freaky Firefish times
Yep.
2,
Yep. Pearly jaws.
2,
2 pearly jaws.
and they just recently swapped burrows.
Yeah.
Brent was so
Because one's pretty big and one's pretty small, so you can kind of see. But it's weird. You'll just catch one. I don't know how they time it, but they steal each other's home.
That's super cool. And you know what? We get a lot of questions about putting a jawfish with this type of gravel, and they seem to love it.
So I mean, you can see it piled up. He moves it. He does what he wants. Brent did add a little bit of sand to give them more of what they naturally kind of find. But I think that they kind of put them together like Lincoln logs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's wicked.
Even for us that work here all day, it's cool to walk by and just see something different. And to get these mushrooms, I mean, you know, the mushrooms when they come in, doesn't matter where they're from, they're all shrunk down, they're not happy. And to get them back to where they're cupping and just laying on everything. We did have a little bit of problem with doing a little bit of mix. So you see some egg cans in here. The mushrooms were actually doing so good that they were starting to sting as they laid on, which I never really thought of because I've never really done something like this. So that was kind of a learning curve. But
So it's not really a sting. It's just like an irritation.
it irritates.
Yep.
Yeah. But it does make it recede if you don't catch it.
Man, it's really, really simple. I love the idea because, you know, exactly to your point, everybody's always worried about throwing a lot of power head on the tank or a ton of light. And I'll actually probably grab the par meter because I really want to know.
You should. I'd be interested to know too.
I'm gonna guess right here where this mushroom is in the front. That's probably only like 70 or 80 par.
Maybe.
So it's grow and glow. So the one that's got the more UV in it is the glow.
So 2 glows and 1 grow. I don't run the whites, and they're both at about 42%. But I used their schedule, like one of the quickest schedule, and
template.
it's kind of weird. It's not anything it ramps up in the morning, it comes back down, it flatlines during the day, and then it ramps up again at the evening and then goes back down.
Weird.
I just wanted to see if it worked. I mean, it's doing pretty good.
I don't think I would do anything different. Me personally, I would probably run a little bit more blue so that the corals are more punchy, but
That's the problem with the glow. The glow's got that weird purpley look to it, but I think they kind of like that UV kind of spectrum. But yeah, I think all we're gonna do is we're gonna try to move a couple more things, and before Reefpalooza, just get mushrooms kind of everywhere going. The Ghanies I loved. That was something that we just wanted to try. Who puts Ghani in low flow, low light, not moving, stagnant, and thinks it's gonna work?
And they're rich in color. None of them seem to be impacted by the lack of flow because they're not tucked in like normal. The tentacles are nice and long. Everything in here has as much color as I would imagine, if not better, than some of the other tanks
I agree.
set up.
I agree.
Yeah, I think like killer execution. I think killer creativity. I think that whoever's taking care of this, Julien, right?
Julie,
We're gonna talk to him because I want to know what he's doing.
he takes a lot of pride in it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool when someone actually grabs the tank and says, man, I really enjoy this.
So let me ask you this really quick though. How do we not have algae in here?
I think a couple things. I think lack of light.
Okay.
And then I think that a lot of the inverts, like we constantly put hermits, snails, stuff like that. I mean, there's nothing in here.
There's a bunch of tiny little blue.
There's nothing like a copper band or anything to take out the snails or anything. So we don't really lose a lot of the cleanup crew from anything else.
And I would assume that means we're probably not feeding a ton too.
Well, those are Brent's babies. Brent and his Antheus, they get fed. There's no discrepancy there. Everybody knows that. So it does get pretty good. I think the nitrates run a little higher on this, but I try not to shock it because it's got some mushrooms and I don't want them to pop off if I do put too big a water change. But the nitrates do run a little high. We do run GFO to offset that. And I think as far as everything else, we run it about the same. We do everything else about 9, about 400, 420, 430. And yeah, it's just from the beginning, this tank never really had a problem. It was a, how do you say, it was the golden child. It's like a lot of these tanks, when we get up and running, it's like we'll get hit with that algae. This one never really had dinos.
The rock was mature rock, right?
Yes. So I think this was rock that we were soaking in the back.
And the media was
soaking.
That's another big benefit. It's got the right type of bacteria right from the get-go. So one observation though, there's like no coralline in here.
Yeah, I think again it has to do with the spectrum of light.
There's like 10 or 12 little specks on that spot, but that's maybe.
But what is crazy about it is how deep it is.
It might be because that's the only spot that's got directional flow.
Could be.
So for anybody who's looking for mushrooms like these two, we do have these. They are all aquaculture.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you can see, you give them the right environment and they're incredible.
Yep.
So dude, killer execute. Killer
Thank you, I appreciate it. It was fun to do something different.
Okay, Julien, we talked to JW. He kind of ran us through how we ended up with this wicked aquarium.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's incredible. And I understand that you have a large hand in how it looks every day.
Yeah.
So can you kind of give us a little bit of an idea of what your husbandry looks like on a weekly basis for this?
Yeah, so usually first thing I'll come in is we're checking, first and foremost, this is a mushroom tank. So we're checking to make sure the mushrooms are looking healthy. Biggest thing is we don't want any kind of like bacterial infection to spread because we have so many nice mushrooms in here. So it's really important to detail and really try and look at almost all the mushrooms in there. Make sure none are looking squinted or bleached or showing signs of that infection.
Can you see that periodically?
Honestly, I think because we were so meticulous in the beginning processes of setting up this tank, it has helped in mitigating any of those effects because we put them in such a prolonged period of like dips and making sure that we're not introducing anything that we don't know is like aquaculture. It has been with us for a while. It really mitigated that effect of putting anything in here that may cause issues.
So that is something, for anybody who's watching. We believe very strongly that corals don't just die. Corals are subjected to some sort of an issue, and they usually die from like secondary infection. And with a mushroom, I mean, you know how it goes. They either turn white and squishy, or they turn into a pile of mush.
Exactly. And so we were seeing that happening a lot, with mushrooms that were coming in, from the wild and stuff like that. So we really wanted to focus on making sure these were all healthy and treated before moving them into the system to hopefully avoid any of that happening.
What do you do for water changes in this tank?
We'll come in and we'll do testing from our husbandry, make sure all the levels are good. And then we'll usually come in and come under the sump here. And that's how we'll do our water change.
So we're expecting that replenishes trace.
Yeah, that's a big thing, we've been hoping to see is that the trace elements will hopefully play a role, and we're trying to get some of these mushrooms to start splitting. So that's fine.
Well, it looks like some of these really big ones are folding, and I suspect probably going to move at some point soon. I mean, when they're that big, it can only be a matter of time. And in a tank that has like 0 stonies in it, you really don't have much of a choice but to ride that high side on your elk. Yeah, there's no real consumption in there for any kind of...
I mean, we've had a couple of chalices in there, a little bit, but nothing that's really going to drop your numbers like you would in an SPS tank.
Sure.
We just want to make sure that the mushrooms aren't, brushing up close enough that they're stinging the coral. So we actually used to have quite a bit more 8 cans littered in this main area. But now, as those mushrooms have really started to fill into their spaces, we've had to sort of push them out.
Yeah, I think you guys are doing a really good job. I think just the execution part of it alone, the fact that we've got a completely mushroom dominated tank, which is far different from anything else that we have here.
Oh yeah.
The fact that the only flow in the entire tank is the return pump is completely different from what we have here. And the fact that it's running blades as its primary light source, also completely different from what else we have here. And the fish selection too. I mean, not for nothing, but it kind of looks like a freshwater tank,
Right,
like
with
the Tetras, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously you scrape the back walls and the...
Right, yeah. Normal husbandry, we're making sure the glass is always looking clean for you, especially since it's out here on display for everyone. Got to make sure that looks good.
Super important. It's part of the magic.
Yeah.
Everybody always comes here and says, man, your store is so clean for a fish store. I don't think I've ever been in a fish store that's so clean. I feel like that is a part of our DNA here. If you go to places like Disney or all around Orlando for that reason, all the light posts are always perfectly painted purple. The signs aren't faded and wore off. They take such care in making sure that it looks good. And I think that concept goes a long way here. We make sure these tanks look good. And, you guys definitely props to you.
No, I agree. I mean, I feel like we got to put our best foot forward because, our ability to keep the tanks here is what customers are going to see when they come in and try and shop from us, And if we can't keep our tanks up to, a high standard, then what are they going to expect from,
That's a really super good point. I love what you just said there. Look, if you've got a local fish store and they're so dead set in their ways and they want you to believe everything that they're pitching, look at their display tanks. If they don't have incredible display tanks, if they don't do a good job themselves, then maybe that's not necessarily the most viable source of information.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put anybody on blast, but you got to know your trade.
Right.
If you're going to teach anybody, you got to know your trade. So good job, man.
Thank
really.
You. Appreciate it.
I had a chance to listen to JW and then also Julien. I guess first things first, let's start with why is there not elves? I asked JW that. And, he makes a valid point about how lighting, it is very dim. It almost seems like it's more dim than these overhead lights in store. So I grabbed my fire meter. I'm actually going to pull this lid off and I want to check a couple points in this tank just to understand how low the light really is. This light setting is pretty well consistent throughout the course of the day. And it's a little bit lower than its peak, but I'll go back to where it is at its peak. This bottom corner right here, it deep far right on the money. We always kind of put Ghani's in moderate to high lighting. But look at that. That's a true testament to these lights. You would expect that the difference between here and there would be a few more points than that, but it's only 2 or 3 points. So this is the furthest from being underneath the beam of light, and that's 30. 60. Steak is very evenly covered. So, I mean, look, if you think about what this is, we didn't spend any money on power heads. We did on the lights. I'm sure it offsets it. It's still an expensive setup, but that's perfect. I mean, I wouldn't ask for any more out of the light. That's better than T5 lighting, honestly. So I feel like That's exactly what's going on here. We do just the right amount of water changes. There's just the right amount of fish in here. We monitor to make sure that the phosphate levels don't rise too high, and they use a GFO to pull it back down. Use a clean energy source of food. They clean the gravel so that we don't end up with a pile up of nutrients. Man, it really just works. If there's anything that you guys have questions with about this tank, make sure to hit us up in the comment section, because I'm sure there's going to be a few. I think this is a little bit more out of the box than some of our videos, but I like the idea that we really kind of digested the information. JW and Julien are doing a really good job as far as taking care of the tank goes, and the rest of the team too for keeping a close eye on things. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell notification if you want to know when we post these videos. And don't be afraid to comment, because that's where we're getting this stuff from. So also, just to add on to that, Reefapalooza in Texas is going to be in Dallas Frisco, March 15th and 16th. We're bringing a bunch of free t-shirts. Vic and I will both be there at the booth. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have a handful of these really cool mushrooms to go with us. So we'll see you then.